Hi, I'm making a step stool out of tiger maple and cherry for my daughter Deetland. Oh, hi, I'm Jim Vanderscaff and welcome to my shop, Down East Wood Art. Today we're going to be building a step stool. And if you think step stools are simple, they can be, but this one has a few little complications to it that make it quite interesting and make it a bit of a challenge. What I've done with this design is to put in wood dowels, and what they have to be is cut at a specific angle. This happens to be 5 degrees. And when you do that, you want to drill them so that they go right through this little piece of wood on all sides. And then in addition, it has a support in the bottom, and you want to drill that so that goes through exactly in the middle of the board. All right, so the question is, how do we, the difficult parts are cutting these, not cutting these boards at the right angle, that's fairly easy, but making sure that the dowels get inserted into the board at the right angle. So we want to keep those angles just exactly the way they are so that when we cut them at, this happens to be 5 degrees, they stay in that position when we're screwing in the dowels. So there are several techniques to do this with. You can use a shape like this. I've cut this at 5 degrees and hold that in position, but that just happens to be for one particular size, and I'm making a bigger size. I happen to be making the top out of a board that's 14 inches long. This happens to be tiger maple, and it's going to be just slightly bigger than this particular size. So what I've done is make what I call a template. And a template is just a nice, easy way to have the legs be perfectly positioned so they're right at 5 degrees, so that when you clamp it together and when you drill, it all stays right in position. And I'll show you how we do that. So I've laid this out with a protractor that gives me exactly 5 degrees on those cuts on both sides. So we'll set that aside for the moment. And we're now going to, the top piece has been cut to the dimensions I want. And I've also created another board which is the same width as this one, because we're going to be making these legs the same width. But now I want to cut these at the right bevel. So I set my table saw. On a table saw like this, you can easily set it right to 5 degrees. identical pieces of wood. The template crosses the top of the board as well. I'll see it on the bottom, but I want to mark it on the top. So that's right there. And on this side, right there. Now, what we want to do is carry that mark over to exactly 5 degrees, which is this is set at. And do the same thing on this side. I got to change the setting. When you get older, you just need these spectacles a little bit more. So I'll reset this to 5 degrees exactly the other way. Go to my mark. I'm just marking it the same way on this side. Now what I want to do is carry that mark all the way down the side that I'm going to be drilling on. I'll show you right here. There's the mark on the board. And the reason we're doing this is because when we drill the holes, we want it to go right in the center. And I'm just doing the same thing on this side, moving it so I can see it a little better. Okay, so that's the outer edge. And now what I'll do is just position these, and we'll do the same marking. This is the same marking on the inside edge. So when I drill, I can see exactly where the center of it should be. Do the same thing on the other side. All right, so now what we want to do is use this template, and I'm going to lay it out and then tape it down so it stays in the position that I want. And just move it so that it's right at the edge of this board. Just like that on that side. I'll do the same thing on the other side. I'm just lining it up and bringing this template back so it's right to the edge. Now it won't move around. And it's locked in place, and we can use it the way we want to use it. All right, so how do we do this? Well, we carried over these marks And that is right where we want them. This is against, when we clamp this now, this mark will be the edge of the board. The mark down there will show in the right position. And we're doing the same thing on the other side so that we have it just where we want it. Now, how do we clamp these babies? Well, we're going to be drilling in through this way. So we want to clamp them in such a way that they're going to be held in position. So use these clamps, these little F clamps. And to get started, you need more than 2 hands. So all right, and now clamp it in position, and I need just a slightly longer clamp. I don't know if this one will do it or not. Yes, it will. So, tighten it up like that. Then move these in position and use a little hammer to tap where they should be. That one's good. Now I'll put another clamp on here, because that's in good position. And how does this one look? I want to be able to see that line I had. I'll take this tape off so that I can move. A little more pressure on there. That's good. Seems like a lot of fussing around, but if you get these the way you want them, then you won't have a bunch of screwing around later. So how are we doing? Now, we look at the line, it's right there. We look at the line here, it's right there. We look at this line, it's right there. There's one more thing to check. I'm going to measure this distance on the inside. That's a little over 10. So, how are we doing? Let's see. Measure it this way. Ah, that is right on. That is right on. So, now this is tied in the bottom. It's tied in the top. Now, one more thing to do. How far are we going to drill in? An easy technique to do this with is to simply tape your drill bit. And for those of you that know, I'm using a Forstner bit in here. And why would I use a Forstner bit? First of all, I want to drill about that deep so that I got a bit of it sticking out after it goes through the entire wood into both pieces. So this is going to give me a stub that I cut off when I drill through it. All right, these are the little dowels that are going to go in here at each location, down here and here and here, here, 4 of them or 6 of them, depending on how many I put on to do. All right, these are all at the right angle. This is nice and flush. This is nice and flush. And Alex, if you come over on this side, you can see now that I've got a perfect line to drill that hole with, all right? So I can determine my angle by looking at it. I know when I'm right in the middle of the board. The only other thing I want to do is make sure that they're a uniform distance from the edge. This happens to be about 2 inches, which is just about right. So what I'll do is, I want them a little less than that. Let's try something like this. A little less than 2 inches. That's good. Put it on the edge. Put a mark there. Put it on the edge. Put a mark there. Put it on the edge. Put a mark here. Put it on the edge up here. And make another mark. That gives me centering holes all the way around. So now I'm ready to drill. Is this solid? It's very solid. It's all locked in place. Okay, let's do it. I'm going to put in 4 different holes. I hold my drill, and I'm rather used to this, but I can drill that kind of an angle right into that board. One of the reasons why I use Forstner bits is they make a nice clean entrance hole, and if you used a brad point drill or a brad point drill or a regular twist drill, they would round out this hole and make it wider, and then you'd have not such a good flush fitting right there. So I'll do more of these. Got to be tapped over just a little bit in the top. A little bit more. Okay. We can stop it there and I'll drill the other holes. Okay, so now we've drilled all 4 holes and now we'll just take it apart and see how we did with centering those holes, because that of course is crucial. If you don't center them properly, then what can happen is the wood can split out and you end up with something that you don't want. So let's see how we did. Take a look at the holes all the way around, Alex. You can see if they're not perfectly centered, they're centered close enough. And not just those holes, but the ones on here. Because these are the ones that we were trying to line up right in here, okay? Okay, so now what we want to do, make sure that we do, is we mark this on the bottom 1, and then we'll mark this board. And we'll just take this loose and we'll mark this one on the inside. And why is that? Well, those holes aren't perfectly identical. In other words, they're close, but they're not identical. And if I switchboards, it just wouldn't work well. All right, so you can see there's a gap here in the gouge in the wood. And what I'll do is I'll just fill that with epoxy later and then sand it down. One more step that we need to do on each of these boards is cut that little groove that we have in this one. Simple little groove. So let's use our, that's going to go on the bottom and the holes aren't, so we need to just center this piece, and it's right at 8 inches. That makes it easy. So we can just mark it at 4. And then if I cut these, let's say I cut them at, what would be good? That's a bit much. Let's do 70. So then we got 40 degrees each way. And we'll put the mark up at the top. I'll just run a square on that so we carry that mark up. Like right there. And then just cut. I think I'll do a little bit more. I think I'll do 65. 65, no, I'll do more. I'll do 60. So it's 30 degrees each way. So that's an easy way to mark these. And then we'll keep that mark. This is the outside, so we'll keep that mark here. Again, we'll mark 8 inches. Because these are the same. I'll mark the middle of that board 4 inches. Carry that mark up. Mark the 30 degrees on this side before we change it. Question is how far up? What did I do? I'm gonna carry that up a little bit further. I should carry that up to, let's make it 2 1/4. Make it 2 1/4. These proportions on these stools are just a matter of what is pleasing. And after a while, having made a few of these, you just learn what's pleasing. The leg heights versus the top, etc. So if it went 30 one way, is I going to go 30 the other way? So that's 30 and 90, that's 120. And so I'll just make 120. Come in here, same mark. Go right to it. All right, so I can cut those on a saber saw or a bandsaw. I happen to have a bandsaw, so I'm going to do that. Just cut them over here, just a minute. If you want to film this too, Alex, that'd be great. Okay. So now the thing to do is to glue it up. And here's the way we do that. Clean off the bench a little bit. Make a nice surface. This was one. And which one was one? The one I got over there. Great, thank you. That was one. And so one and one go together. And that's on the inside. So we'll get more of these out. These little dowels. Handy little dowels, 3/8 of an inch in diameter. And we will stick some glue on them and put them down in the holes. And there's a sequence for how we have to do this because of the fact that we got these dowels at a bit of an angle. So I'll put just a little bit on there. This is end grain, so end grain really doesn't glue very well. So I'll put some glue on each one of the dowels before I pound them in. Just a little bit. It has a little groove on it, so it works well that way. Put a little bit more glue on there. Like I say, end grain really doesn't glue well, but we'll just put a little bit more on there. And now that was on the inside, and this goes like that. So, put glue on these as we pound them up. Realize that they're going to be coming up the top. So that's a fairly tight fit, but we'll clamp it later. And we'll use the same technique that we did to clamp that on, using that. Now, when we do these babies, what I'm going to do is I'll put them on with a little glue in this joint. And then just pound them in from the top. I guess I could do it this way. This way is fine. Yeah, I can do it that way. A little bit more glue on these. Spread this out a little bit. All right. I'll get some more glue. Just carry that around. So it's all on there nicely. And now we'll do the same thing. And remember that they're coming through the top. Now, we got both of them, and now we want to make sure they line up just like before when we clamp them, because we want to put some good clamping force on here, so we'll take it back the same way we had it before. Put some force on it. Check to make sure we're on the lines. We know we're on the lines on the top. And we're on the lines on the bottom. And now we can put more pressure on it. Oops. Let's jump around here. I don't know. Let's make sure that they're on there properly. That one's okay, this one's out. That's on the line. That's on the line. Tighten this up. I'll tighten these slowly so they put pressure on that joint. Okay, so that's it for this segment. After this dries, we'll take it apart and then we'll put the cross piece in.